you can go through financial manipulation as much as you'd like, but we actually had about 300 responses, either emails, phone calls, or letters, and 85% were very positive. We actually had a gentleman, I believe was 79 years old, that wrote me a letter and attached a $5 bill, and just said, I don't have a lot of money, but here's for the cause. And then probably about 12 or 13% responded that you should stick to the waste business and keep your nose out of politics. And then there was the 2% hate mail. But I think overall,
that's not too bad.
I don't think it's bad. But I think that people do care, and I can tell you that in my business, of the 62 contracts, 62, 63 contracts I have, 28 of the municipalities require that we perform the billing. So if you live in Camp Hill Borough, you live in Silver Spring Township, Susquehanna Township, handful of York municipalities, Manchester, Mount Wolf, southern part of York County, we send out bills to 57,000 homes. And we have, I think, 8 or 9 people in our collections department, and those 8 or 9 people are working to collect our money. And I think just in York County alone, last week, there was an article that York County had the largest number of sheriff sales ever. And the sheriff sales are here in Cumberland County, Dauphin County. School taxes are continuing to go up. I know of some municipalities that the sewer fees doubled in 1 year, in 2008 to 2009. And the reality is that trees don't grow to the sky, and I think that it's affecting us all. So I think back to your question, I think it was very interesting, and at the end of the day, I was pleased, and I would have to say, I think in York County we saw larger voter turnout.
Well, that's great.
So,
well, in Pennsylvania, businesses pay about $23 billion in taxes, and when you hit a tough budget year, it seems to be the first place that government will look to fill whatever gaps there are. This year's no different. There have been various proposals out there to try to balance the budget. Good idea, bad idea?
Well,
I think I know the answer, but you go ahead.
Well, in business, and I actually sat next to a man in York who owns a manufacturing company, and when the recession hit in 2008 and the credit markets corrected, and this company was doing a lot of work for Chinese customers, or their products were. Let me back up a second. They were doing a lot of they were manufacturing products where they competed with the Chinese, and as the economy corrected, this company had to lay off about 1/3 of its workforce, and it had to make some tough decisions. They had to cut back spending, and they had to pull in their wings. Revenue dropped, I think, by 30 or 40%, so it was real serious. But in the way government works is, if we don't have enough money, we just raise taxes. We never say, hey, why don't we turn the lights off and see if we can bring the electric bill down? Why don't we maybe cut some hours back and maybe monitor our overtime more? But there's no accountability to expenses in government, and I think that has to change. When you talk about the state of Pennsylvania, we're coming up on the budget, and again, you have to understand, I'm in York and I'm in my business, and probably a little knowledge makes me semi-dangerous. But I've heard through our local legislative delegation that the Auditor General has uncovered somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 to $2 billion worth of welfare fraud. Well, $1 to $2 billion worth of welfare fraud, if we cut it out, well, there's $1 to $2 billion of found money, so to speak. So why aren't we going after that instead of raising taxes all the time?
Yeah, I think that's a good question to take a break here. We are having a special edition of Behind the Headlines today. We're having a conversation with Scott Wagner, who's the president and CEO of Penn Waste, and we're talking about the need for more business experience, more business sense in government. We'll rejoin the conversation right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by PAConstructionJobs.com, where you can look for job openings, post a resume, or learn more about a rewarding career in Pennsylvania's highway construction industry. And by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The Council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions that make the Commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. By Weber Incorporated, a leading manufacturer of hardwood lumber and wood products. The Highway Equipment and Supply Company, Central and Northeast Pennsylvania's authorized distributor for premier construction equipment manufacturers. And the American Home Bank, a nationally chartered and FDIC-insured yet locally owned and operated bank in central Pennsylvania. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Express, transporting construction, farm, and industrial equipment throughout the United States.
Welcome back to the special edition of Behind the Headlines. In this particular program, Mara and I are speaking to Scott Wagner, the president and CEO of Penn Waste, about how we can use business principles and business people's experience to improve government. Now, remember, you can access us also. You can find our shows archived on thevoiceofpa.net on our internet radio station. You can also find us on Facebook. You can also find us on YouTube. So you can find us on all those different areas. And Mara will help you in Facebook.
Absolutely.
She set up our Facebook account for us. We're very thankful for that. And of course, you can find us on the regular Susquehanna website, where you'll find our policy position papers. But Scott, we were at the point where we wanted to talk about what are the things that could be done in Pennsylvania to improve the business climate. You, as one of the leading business people in Pennsylvania, experience this every day. What should we be doing specifically in Pennsylvania?
Well, I think the answer to that question is real simple, and there are a couple, many categories. But I think we have to make Pennsylvania a more business-friendly state. It's not business-friendly. There's a lot of competition from southern states. I mean, I could go on and name, Alabama, Arkansas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Georgia. There are states where there's a lot of land. There are companies that move from Pennsylvania all the time to southern states. They're non-union states.
Lower taxes.
Lower taxes. If I look back here in Pennsylvania, we have one of the highest corporate net income taxes in the state of Pennsylvania. I think we're number 2. We have a capital stock tax. We desperately need workers' comp reform in this state, and what that means is that if we have someone who is injured, we have a light duty program at Penn Waste, and 98% of the time someone's injured, it's a fairly minor injury, and we're able to bring that employee back to work right away, and we have different programs to basically transition them back into their position where they were injured. But then there are the 2 or 3% that are really outright fraud claims, and somebody shows up on a Monday morning and they're after the first hour they're injured, and you find out they were out playing baseball the day before, and it takes us maybe 2 years to resolve that claim, and meanwhile we're paying the wages, we're paying medical costs, we're paying attorney's fees, and it's like watching paint dry, so to speak, watching this case go through the system. And we need some fast tracking, and we need reform. And I've been hearing about workers' comp reform for 20 years, and it just hasn't happened. There's the PHRC, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. It allows someone to file a complaint against a business, really without a lot of basis. And most of these claims are resolved in favor of the employer, but at a cost. I mean, typically, the company will retain a law firm. So legal fees. We need legal reform in the state of Pennsylvania badly, tort reform. We need it nationwide. I mean, if you go to any motel, hotel in the state of Pennsylvania, you get a phone book out, and you go to the back page, it's a personal injury law firm on the back of that page. And so, insurance rates are higher in Pennsylvania than they are in other states. And if you want to try to insure a car in Philadelphia, it could be 25 to 50% more than insuring a car in, say, Harrisburg or York. So, I mean, there's costs associated.